this topic of like, what can we do in 2025 kind of spurred from just conversations that I have with coaches. And I think at this time of the year, if you're anything like me, you start to really get to know your team. And if you have a new staff, you get to know your staff strengths and weaknesses. And I think great coaches at this time of the year start putting people in the right seats, right? We start making the adjustments. We start moving some things around. We change how we practice. We change maybe our rotations. And I just wanted to share some ideas with coaches that may help them in 2025. And it doesn't matter what system you run. It doesn't matter what kind of season you're having. It doesn't matter if you're at the freshman level, the varsity level, or the collegiate level. These can be implemented tomorrow, and I think you'll see some returns on the investment. 2 frameworks that I'm kind of working off of is I think there's 3 seasons as a coach. Shout out John Carrier, one of my coaching friends, a good follow on Twitter. I saw this screenshot on his timeline months ago, and it stuck with me. There's 3 seasons as a coach. First season is like your off season, like April, May, and you're like, man, I think we can be really good next year. I think we have a chance to win our district or conference or make a run at state. And then season 2 is you've probably maybe got there as a coach this year is we're not as good as I thought we were. We're not as deep as I thought we were. We don't shoot it as well as I thought we were. We don't defend the ball as well as I thought we were going to. Our players aren't committed as I thought they were at one point. And season 3 is, okay, this is who we are, and this is what we have to do. And I think the quicker you get to that reality, the better the coach you are and the better the coach you can be for your team. So that's the first framework. And the second one is just a me, we, you. Like, what do I need to do better as a coach in 2025? What do we as a coaching staff, what do we as a team, like your players, need to do better? And then like you, like individually, one-on-one conversations with assistants, one-on-one conversations with players, I think are really valuable here. I'm going to take more of the me approach because I would imagine most people listening to this are coaches, right? And probably head coaches, maybe, hopefully there's a lot of assistant coaches that want to be a head coach one day. But here's how you can be a better coach with your team in 2025. I'm going to give you 3 from practice that you can make an adjustment to, and then 2 from a game. First one, there's probably something with your team that you're not doing well enough right now, and it's bothering you. And it's been bothering you for weeks, but you have felt the need to, well, we got to prepare against this zone, or we have to install this set, but there's something that is nagging you. Go back to your first principles. Take like a fresh approach in 2025. I've talked with a lot of coaches that I consult with, and they're all saying like, well, we don't play till January 5th, or we don't play till the 6th. We have 3 or 4 practices in a row. Go back to first principles. And what I mean by first principles are like, think lock left defense. The first principle in lock left is being able to lock the ball to jail or the left side of the floor, free throw line and below, right? Like, let's go back there and just reinforce, let's reteach and get our players really, really sound for the home stretch, kind of like a refresher course. We tend to do that in the classroom. Think about if you're a classroom teacher, like kids come back from a 2-week break. It's like, hey, let's review where we were. Let's kind of review what we did in the first semester. I would go back and do that. I think you'd see a lot of dividends. Race and space, let's just race. Like, what happens to all these teams that want to play fast in transition? They get to this point in the season and the game slows down. And it's because other things become important. Don't let that happen in 2025. Let's reboot, refresh, and reteach our first principles. I was talking with a coach, and he asked, what do you think of this? And I don't forgot what he showed me. Like, it was a set play, or maybe it was like another series he wanted to put in the drive in space. And it was like, hey, it's good, but if you put that in, X and Y are going to suffer. Are you willing to pay that price? Like, is it necessary? I feel like I'm constantly reminding coaches, like, do you actually need that? There was a coach that reached out and he was like, hey, do you like this against the 1-3-1? It was like a lob play. It's like, yeah, like how many times do you think you'll run it this game? He was like, once out of an ATO. I'm like, so it's max 2 points. And how often, or, what's the rate of return on lobs versus the zone, So good reminder there. Go back to your first principles. Yeah. Okay, here's the next one. Until we, as a game, measurement is magic. if you want to improve on something in the short run, like whatever bothered you in 2024 about your team, it's probably rebounding. It's probably your toughness. It's probably your shot selection. If you're like 90% of basketball coaches, then let's measure that every single day and let's give our players a benchmark of what we're striving to beat, like a team record. And here's what I mean by until we. Let's start practice with 5-on-5 and say we're going to play 5-on-5 until we miss a block out. You might go 17 seconds on day one because you stink at blockouts right now. The next day, or you can give on the same day, maybe you can run it back. All right, boom, intervention. Maybe we do what we call a game sandwich. We just played a game 5-on-5. We missed a blockout after 17 seconds. Let's go do a blockout drill or a blockout game that just targets that. And then let's come back and we're going to play 5-on-5 until we miss a blockout. And maybe you go 35 seconds. Maybe you go 2 more trips down the floor. It's like, wait, we just got twice as good at blockouts. Tomorrow, we know we've got to go 36 seconds or longer until we miss a blockout. And you could do that with like shot selection. We have a shot scale at Savvy. We're hunting 9s and 7s, 9 being a big advantage layup, 7 being a big advantage 3. Maybe it's we're going to play 5-on-5 until somebody takes something below a 9 or a 7. So instantly players remember what they think about. We're going to make that really, really important. And it's something that we can measure. And confidence comes from putting in the work and seeing the results. So even if we just highlight rebounding or highlight shot selection and we see ourselves getting better, well, now we can tell our team, hey, we are a better rebounding team than we were last week. Even if you're not, right? They're going to go into the game with that confidence. And when you have confidence, it typically breeds execution in what you're doing. So the game is until the next one is the way you format your week. And this one is we're going to probably buck some traditional thinking here. But let's say we're in we're moving into conference play or district play, and now our season becomes very routine. And at the college level, we played Thursday, Saturday. I know some conferences will play Wednesday, Saturday. It's just kind of a mixed bag, but you're going to find your routine. High schools typically, I find, be Tuesday, Friday. So let's work off a Tuesday, Friday game. This is what my week would look like. Is number one, I would never practice on a weekend unless I had to. Maybe the gym's not available on Monday, so we got to go on Sunday if you're allowed to do that. Or like Thanksgiving week, I always gave my teams off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or usually actually it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because we usually played Wednesday. So we were going to come in on Sunday because we weren't going to have 4 days off, right? So all things being equal, I eliminated weekend practices. It freed up so much more time for me as the coach to watch more film, to be more intentional with my planning. It gave me time to step away, and it gave our players the physical break, but the mental break was even more valuable. When we came in on Monday, everybody had so much more juice. Monday, you got a normal practice. Tuesday, what I did, since we lost the 90-ish minutes on Sunday, after school, our team came in the gym and we went through like a 45-minute max run through. And we called it run through, not walk through, just for our approach to it. But it was shots. It was get a couple possessions. We might go live some or do some like training games where we're creating some reads, some decisions just to prime them of anything that we had to reinforce leaving Monday's practice. Tuesday's game day. Wednesday would actually be my lightest day. And I have found, like, if you think of the football approach, let's say a high school football team, you could probably picture this. If you're listening to this and you're a high school coach, your football team plays on Friday and Thursday's practice is like an hour, and it's like their walkthrough day. Science is showing to flip that. I would focus more on what my team's coming off of. Tuesday, we had a really high load, high intensity, high volume day. Wednesday, we're going to shut it down. It's going to be film, skill, shots, time for meetings, but we're putting in the game plan. And then Thursday becomes your quote unquote dress rehearsal, where we're going to get in and everything that we installed Wednesday, we're doing it live, full speed on Thursday, but we're not going long. This would be like a rough draft day. Later in the season, we actually did 32 minutes of competition because our game was 32 minutes. Let's get in here. We're going to go live for 32 minutes. That could be all 5-on-5. That could be some small sided games and 5-on-5. But we're going 32 minutes of competition, and then we're going to shoot for 32 minutes. And then we were out. So practice lasted about an hour and 15 with the warm up and, your pauses and all that. And it was just a great way to structure our week where it kept our guys fresh. It gave them a nice routine, and it prevented us from overloading them, but it also gave us a nice physical progression where the idea behind shutting down Wednesday and getting like scaling up on Thursday is you get that central nervous system revving up into Friday. And it also allows you to fix anything in live play the day before the game instead of like we're walking through this, but I'm not sure if my team understands this because we're going half speed. Let's go do it full speed, bullets flying, recreate the game as much as possible, as close to the game as you can. Let's talk game day. This is always a hot topic, and the approach is more important than anything. Again, it goes back to measurement. Stop setting game goals for your team. I get the question a lot. How many deflections do you think are good for my team? I'm like, I don't know. Like, how good's the team you're playing? Or what's your philosophy? Like, are you a gap team? Do you play a passive 2-3 zone? Do you play block left? Is it pressure man? I have no idea. There's so many things that we have to know in order to set a quote unquote game goal. I would, we all know Dean Oliver's 4 metrics. You've got effective field goal percentage, turnover percentage, rebounding percentage, and then the free throw factor. Just try to beat your opponent in those. Like if you win all 4 of those, you're going to bat 1,000. You're going to have an undefeated season. You can't lose if you win all 4 of those. The 2 that you need to focus on the most are turnover percentage and effective field goal percentage. We have benchmarks for those. Like I think effective field goal percentage at the high school level, upper 40s. I think for my team, we shot the ball well. So the effective field goal percentage really helped us. We were above 50% a lot in our better years. Whatever you were at last year, maybe midway through the season, bump it up a little bit. And if I was going to improve that, I would focus on shot selection first. But I would say upper to mid 40s, like that would be our barometer of where we want to be, but that's not a game goal because you could take great shots and just have a bad night. And it doesn't mean that your offense didn't do its job. It just means you had a bad night. Turnover percentage, I would say 15% is where you want to be, which just for those that don't know, it just means 15% of your possessions in with a turnover. I think that gives you a lot of room to score enough points, to get enough points per possession to win the game. If you get to the 20s, that's when you start to be concerned. But at the same time, can you win if your opponent's at 30%? Absolutely. You probably will. And that's why I don't think game goals are I guess they're not that they're not important. I think they're vastly overrated. Rebounding percentage. A good measurement is our defensive rebounding percentage and our offensive rebounding percentage add up to be 100. So we got 60% of our defensive rebounds and 40% of our offensive rebounds. It means you rebounded well enough to win the game. Again, how many rebounds you get doesn't really matter. We just want to have a better rebounding percentage than our opponent. And then same thing with free throws. If you win turnover percentage and effective field goal percentage in the same game, you win like 95% of the time at the high school level. So what goes into those things? Well, shot selection goes into obviously field goal percentage. How do you get better shots? One, it's eliminating bad shots, but it's also offensive rebounding. Teams typically make 60% of their second chance points and like 80% of their third chance points because you're getting a higher valued shot. The idea is there. How can we affect our opponent's effective field goal percentage and our turnover percentage? Like if we get a live ball turnover and they go shoot an uncontested layup, well, that's the double whammy, right? Our turnover percentage is up, their effective field goal percentage is up. And that's why turnovers are the number one metric that determine winning and losing at the high school level, just because teams turn the ball over more there. And I would say at the college level too. I think once you get in the pros, field goal percentage is important because the pros just rarely turn it over. So ditch the game goals. Stop setting these arbitrary goals for your team as far as if we get this many possessions, we're going to win. Is that a good indicator of performance? Yes, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win the game. last one has to do with games, and I'm thinking from a place of timeouts here. I know this got popular a couple or oh gosh, maybe more than like a few years ago. I forgot what coach it was. You might know, but I think it might have been Musselman. He's a big social media guy. Uh, Big Musselman fan is Musselman, and he posted on Twitter his game or like his timeouts that he charted in games. I think it was when I was at Nevada, and I was like, man, that is awesome. And
Mhm.
we did that at App State as well. Our Dobo wrote down all the notes that we made during timeouts. But I thought it was really valuable to see if what we were talking about in games, did we ever fix it? You know, we're talking about shot selection in the first quarter. Did shot selection get better in the second or the third or the fourth, or did we just harp on it all game? If we did, like, what could we have done? And I find the easiest way to make adjustments in the game is change personnel. You know, like if you want to get more rebounds, put a better rebounder in there. And that might be the best way to determine your adjustments and your lineups. You know, at the end of the first quarter, a lot we're talking about like effort and energy. Well, maybe we got to sub more in the first quarter. Also, coming from like a key to winning the game standpoint, could we identify like our number one key to winning the game? Let's say that is rebounding. And we go the first time out of the first quarter and then the first quarter break or the first media timeout, second media timeout, and we haven't talked about rebounding yet, then is that a key to winning the game? So I think it's a good guide. Figure out what's important to you before the game. Is that being communicated during the game? Is what's being communicated during the game actually changing? Like, are we adjusting as coaches and putting our players in position, or is it just something that we're pleading and yelling and hoping for, similar to practice? Like, hey, let's get better shots. Like, well, how do we shape the environment to get better shots? Can we shape the environment in the games to bring those timeout notes to life? Last thing on that, it also gives you a very good cheat sheet or guide on what you have to work on in the next practice.
Yeah.
How many times as coaches do we play a game and then after the game, it's like, well, we didn't do that well, but we got to get ready for team Y that's coming in, you know, the crosstown rival. So let's work against the press. But like you just spent all of your timeouts talking about rebounding. So good guide there. I feel like that is a valuable tool. Like anything, what you put into it, you'll get out of it. I would also, last thing, coaches, record yourself for a game. I think it'd be really interesting for you to hear yourself, how you approach your team in timeouts, how you approach individuals during dead balls when they get substituted out. I have found that to be a good eye opening experience for coaches.